I'm going to be working with Castor on accepting touch, and then we're going to work on a little bit more petting. So he's already targeted my hands and the whips, and he's targeted next to the gate and protected contact. So we're going to work more on petting today, on kind of getting a little bit further. See how he's still tense there? He let me touch him and pet him, and then he kind of jumped a little bit. So he's still got some tension in there, which is totally fine. And I liked his response afterward because he didn't run off, he didn't escalate it, he just stayed, and then I rewarded him. So he is learning pretty quickly, but it's just going to be a lot of little baby steps. It might be a little boring, but really good training is quite boring. So just kind of work on his petting his neck, kind of get through his mane here. He's got some wind knots, and it's just kind of gross. And I'm not pulling hair out; it's already out. It's just twisted up in his other hair. So we're just gonna work on that a little bit, so I can get some of it out, and it's not quite as bad without having to get the brush out, because I'm gonna have to desensitize him separately to the mane and tail brush that I'm gonna use. So but I just kind of mess with that and then click while my hand's on him. As long as I do that and don't get too fast, that's pretty much the main objective here. I really want to work on getting a little bit further down his back and on his front legs and shoulders and belly area. And then just nice and slow and rhythmic so he knows where I'm going to be. I'm not going to be super fast. I know that he's not on the same level as a domestic horse, and so you really have to slow things down and break them down, because it can be really hard at first to, if you, especially if you only worked with domestic horses and you're like, okay, well, petting is good for them, why don't they stay here? It's not. It's something that they have to be exposed and desensitized to, just like the saddle or the rider or anything else. So make sure that, see, I didn't approach really well there. I should have started up higher on the shoulder and then kind of moving my hand down instead of just coming right away to his leg. So that was my fault on that one. And then when I approached him differently that second time, he did do better. So I'm okay with the jump. That's just giving me information. That one was my fault, though. He was saying I wasn't ready for that. It was scary. So I need to approach him differently. But you want to be careful, because you might not get just a flinch. You might get a paw out or a kick out or run away or something like that. So, and then I again made the same mistake, and I just went and touched him with my dressage whip. I should have brought it up to him, let him target it, touch his neck, touch his shoulder, work my way back down his front leg. I think I got way too focused on, oh, I must touch the leg, I must do this behavior, that I didn't forget, I forgot to pay attention to introducing him to these things. So again there, I went to just touching him, and he's not quite so sure, so he's leaning away. He's not getting in position. Those are all telling you that he's not ready for whatever it is that you're doing. So just bring him back up, let him relax for a second. I should introduce it, reintroduce it. There we go, that's better. He actually came toward it. Really, I should have reintroduced, like him targeting it, him being touched, like him targeting it with his neck, then him letting me touch him on the neck, touch his shoulders, and then work my way down instead of just working my way immediately. A lot of other horses that are less confident than Castor would have just run away. So that wasn't the best choice at the time, but this whole thing is as an experiment. That's actually a lot better. So again, Castor's helping me out here. I should have just started again at the shoulder and the neck and worked my way down. But it's okay. It's a learning experience, so it's a good film to learn from. So he has figured it out. Other horses just don't figure it out. Other horses aren't as brave or as confident or don't generalize as much, and they just have a lot more fear, and that's totally fine. It's just a different kind of horse. So but I do think it is important to make sure that your horse is okay with different kinds of whips being touched all over their body before you go ahead and put your hands on them, as far as Mustangs go, or maybe if you're starting a horse or something like that, or definitely a horse with a problem. Because I have three main whips that I use, so now he's looking much better on his legs there, but I'll use the lunge whip, the driving whip, which has that shorter lash, and then the dressage whip, and they're all different. They've got the different lengths of lashes, like the dressage whip really doesn't have one. So they work well for different things, but then it has that different feeling for the horses as well. Because if I have just my dressage whip, the horse never feels that lash. So, and can be moving around, or it could be on one side and then I'm on the other side, that kind of thing. So it's important to just make sure that they're okay with those different types of sticks or whips, and then you can put your hands on them. Just so you have that space, you're not right underneath them right away or right behind them or whatever place that is might be worrying for them might be. So that's just a good rule to have. You can work on that mane a little bit. I don't want to focus on it too much. The more you just stay in one place and focus on one thing too much, it tends to worry them. It tends to worry all horses, but it comes out more with the Mustangs. If I'm just like very intently trying to do this, they get a little worried. I'm acting more predatory and then they want to leave. So I'll do a little bit there and then I'll move on to something else. So it's this nice balance of doing different things and rewarding him for those things, but not focusing too much on one thing. And then on the other side of it, you don't want to run from thing to thing, and the horse is unsure of what he should be doing, or maybe you're too frantic in your movement, and the horse gets worried. So it's really a good balance of those two things. So you want to kind of stop yourself, because I get into both of those patterns. I get into the we need to do this now, and I'll just focus on that one thing, or I'll bounce around too much. So I really have to slow down. I write out a nice detailed plan of everything that I need to do, and then I give my horse breaks in the middle. So this these sessions with the Mustangs, I did not give them as many breaks like I should have. They've had a little bit, but especially for where they're at, that since they came with nothing. They started from zero. Most domestic horses don't. They're already used to things, even if you've never touched them. They've been around the barn and they're used to equipment and things like that. So, or just at least seeing people. So more breaks would be definitely good for them mentally. And I think we overlook that a lot as we train too, because we have a certain amount of time and we need things to get done, and we get into that headspace and then the horse just doesn't cooperate. So definitely slow down and go faster are my motto that I need to stick to. But I'm just slowly, gradually getting down to his hips here, and he's doing quite well. Like we've really progressed quite nicely, and really like I can start at his shoulder and work my way down pretty quickly. I'm not rushing, but I'm just doing a couple pets and then working my way down. So that's looking really nice, and I'm kind of working my way down away from his top line and onto his belly. So I like his head position. It's nice and horizontal. His ears are not back and they're not forward, and they're moving, but he's not like stuck too much, it doesn't seem like. And he's at a very high rate of reinforcement. He's getting clicks and treats all the time, because this is something that he needs to really. I know we're not technically counter conditioning, but some counter conditioning needs to happen. So he's um, getting rewarded for letting me do these things at a really high rate, so that he thinks that this is super positive. So we really like that. I'm working my way toward his tail, and he's got some tension in his hindquarters. His tail is kind of tucked between his hindquarters. That's going to be completely normal. Just pay attention to it. Make sure that you notice these things. It's all those little details that are important with horses, probably with anything, but especially with them, because you want to make sure that it's not going to escalate somewhere. You got to see this behavior and say, okay, this could escalate to something else. That tuck tail could escalate into a spook or a kick out. So we just want to pay attention to those things and be like, okay, we notice it. This could happen. Let's see if he relaxes. If he relaxes, we should probably back off and reward. So like I've noticed this here. So we're going to work on just me standing by his hindquarters and rewarding that, because he needs kind of a step back, and just that one thing at a time instead of the touch and my presence. We'll just work on me being right here. See him tense up a little bit. He's turning his head. He's not super sure about me being back there right now. And that's just something we need to work on. And it's hard in the beginning, because when I'm working with the Mustangs, you're trying to stay safe. You're trying to stay kind of up front. We're working on things that are near their head and the shoulders. So we gotta work on being close to their hindquarters and the rest of their body, but doing it in a safe way. That was better. He's got a little bit of rock, but he didn't turn his head that time. So he did look more comfortable. Very nice. And he's still like swishing flies, and interacting with his environment, so you know that he's not completely shut down and frozen, because we don't want that. And then on the other side, we don't want him running away and scared. So all those little body language clues we need to pay attention to. And I like that he's reaching his head down and like nibbling some grass and kind of cleaning up some hay on the ground. So he's not, again, he's not frozen. We don't want any of that. We don't want that because that happens a lot in the beginning of training, especially with like natural horsemanship type stuff. They can just kind of stick there and freeze there, and then the trainers think that, oh my goodness, he's so quiet, but that's not what's happening, and then we have
Good
problems later
boy.
on. That was a very nice side
Good
pass,
boy.
and I think we're just going to work on pretty much the same thing. Unfortunately, my camera is at a weird angle, and so we've kind of got his head cut off, but we're just going to work
Good
on some
boy.
targeting,
Smile.
and again,
Good.
basically the same thing I just did, just on the other side. So I'm just going to fast forward through that. It's going to be the same process
Yep.
with slightly different things if I need to work on one spot or the other, but I'm going to start with he did some targeting.
Ready?
Now we're going to do some petting on the neck that he knows it and is comfortable with, and then kind of expand from there. So then can I pet down his front legs? Can I pet down his back to his hindquarters? Can I stand by his hindquarters? Same kind of thing, just on the other side.